Welcome, everybody, to another episode of On the Corner of Crenshaw. I'm Alexis.
And I'm Brian.
And we're the Crenshaws. So where did this come from? Like, this whole idea, this whole podcast?
So this really came about when I was thinking about how you and I could really reintroduce ourselves. People know us as, I'm a musician. People know you as a praise and worship leader. But they never really get to see us in our full magnitude and our full capacity. Obviously, you are a great teacher. You're a great theologian, as they like to call them.
Oh, dear.
And there's so much more to me than being a musician. I really wanted to find a way to reintroduce myself just in another light.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted people to get an opportunity to see us together, really focusing on our lives, our marriage, our ministry, our children, things that we're navigating through. And hopefully, somebody will see this and they'll be blessed or they'll be encouraged or empowered by, our testimony or what we have to offer. So that's where the whole On the Corner of Crenshaw, just so happens that, our last name is famous. So.
I think when you brought the idea to me, I really thought it was dope. And I thought that, that we could really incorporate or give visibility, my lamb, blood of Jesus, to just the process of becoming.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times people are so focused on because it's always said, people post what they want people to see
mm-hmm.
on social media, which is true. Who's going to post, I declare bankruptcy or I'm
mm-hmm.
getting, a divorce, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that this will be an opportunity for us to really just be honest and show the process of
mm-hmm.
becoming in the aspects of marriage, parenthood, and ministry, because we don't have all the answers. We are, I don't know what we're considered married-wise. Like, we're not newlyweds anymore. I don't know. It used to be like first 5 years you were newlyweds.
Right.
And we are fastly approaching 7 years in January.
Yeah.
But we're definitely not veterans. So we're still, growing and learning. I think all marriages are, because again, when you get married, who we were, or to my point, when you get married, who we were when we first got married is definitely not who we are now.
Right.
We've had children, we've had loss. I lost my grandmother. We've had job changes. I began a career, you transition, like you said, from being a full-time musician to, exploring other things and pursuing ministry. So I think that it's so important. And this is definitely an avenue to contribute to your vision, man of God. Just the transparency of becoming. There's many things that we'll talk about that we're still figuring out. We don't have answers to. And I think that it just really is a platform for us to show the working definition of who the Crenshaws are.
Right. So we were dialoguing and I asked you a question. What do you think, or how do you feel about being... how did I phrase it the other night? What was the question?
About being dominant?
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to ask the question?
So, I forgot the question.
The question was along the lines of, how do I handle having an established and basically knowing who I am in purpose and in ministry, all those sorts of things.
Right.
And you knowing who you are in purpose and ministry and all of that. And how do we make it work together?
Right.
And how does it make each other feel? I think that was the question.
What would I do without her?
Not be stressed out. I think for me, as I've prefaced, it's a working definition. It's matriculated. It has evolved is the word. When we first got married, because I've been in ministry since 2008, Um, and I felt like I had to dumb down and shrink
Mm-hmm.
while you figured out and became.
Mm-hmm.
You never did anything to make me feel that way, but I just assumed because of the whole gender roles and, the man's the head of the house and he has to, you know, all this other stuff that society projects on us.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I had to kind of put myself on pause so that you could do and become. But for me now in this place, I'm really inspired by your becoming, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me, as you become and are becoming more, I feel more open to, come out and to be and to,
Mm-hmm.
explore and to, not shrink back, that sort
Mm-hmm.
of thing. What about you?
So like I told you the other night, like for a while it was challenging for me. Because I in my mind, and again, you didn't like verbally or physically do anything that made me feel this way. I guess it was just kind of subconscious. But I had to get over the gap or the age difference and figure out how to be me and be confident in being me.
Mhm.
Um,
For those of you who don't know, there's a 7-year age difference between Brian and I. I am not a cougar. And that is my story, and that's what I'm sticking to, okay? Cougars are 10 years older. I am 7.
she barely made it in. But I really had to I had to get confident and comfortable in just being Brian
Mhm.
and what Brian had to offer to the world. Um, I remember struggling and thinking about, well, I have to show up, I have to be something that I'm not. I felt that. And for a while, I overcompensated and I did more than I needed to because I tried to, for some odd reason, close that gap.
Mhm.
And when I say close that gap, I wanted to show you that I knew more
Mhm.
or that I was capable to lead.
Which are two totally different things.
Yeah, absolutely. But I wanted to show you that, you may be older than me, but I'm still strong enough. I'm still old enough. I'm still capable enough to lead you. And even that perspective was, I don't want to say toxic because everything is toxic these days.
Non-beneficial.
It wasn't beneficial, but it was very, um, what's the word I'm looking for? We'll use toxic for right now. But it wasn't healthy.
Mhm.
And it wasn't productive
Mhm.
because it was making us fight battles that didn't exist.
So
Um,
let me ask, sorry, why do you think that is? Like, is it society, or is it just the male makeup? Like, what geared that? Because I never said that to you. I knew marrying you that I was 7 years older than you, and
mhm.
I didn't. I think that, and this definitely is worth another episode. This the whole navigating the age difference because going into it, just being like, oh, it doesn't matter, which was my perspective, is just setting yourself up for failure. I think you just have to be knowledgeable of it and be open to figuring out how to
Mhm.
navigate that. But why did you feel, the need to do that? Because I married you knowing that, and I still said yes when you asked me.
Um, because okay, so our lives are shaped by our experiences.
Mhm.
So you may not have ever said this like verbally, but me going into a relationship knowing that you were 7 years older than me and far more exposed in certain areas than I was, in my mind, something said, you got to show up. And it wasn't like a demand or anything, but I figured if you don't show up, she's not going to show up. Like
Mm.
if you don't show up one day, she's going to be like, okay, I'm done with this.
Oh, wow. I
Um,
never knew that.
yeah. So like the entire time I really tried to maintain the image of, I promise you I got this. Like, even up until recently, like, it was hard for me to say I don't got it. You know what I mean? Because pride wouldn't let me tell somebody that I already knew was independent. I already knew, could manage things on their own. I don't have it. You know what I mean? So I struggled for a long time just being confident in who I am, because honestly, most of my life was geared around, or most of my life, me being who I was geared around the validation of others. I remember when I first started playing music, the validation I wanted from people, the first, I guess, acknowledgement I got was embarrassment.
Wow. Oh yeah, I remember the story.
And that did something to me. So for years after that, I really had to manage who I was versus what they said.
Yeah.
I'm good regardless of whether you like it or not. I had to get to that point. So to your question, like, I struggled with being called in this marriage because I didn't have to compete, but I wanted to make sure it was a balance between the two of us. I wanted you to feel supported and I wanted to feel supported. I didn't want you supporting me to put you on the back shelf, or me supporting you to put me on the back shelf. I wanted us to both equally coexist in what it was we were called to do. So
I think that's crazy because we had similar mindsets, but it presented in different ways. Because I wanted to be proactive to ensure that there was never a moment where there was competition.
Right.
So to do that, I withdrew completely in that regard. And I think a part of me was resentful. But I made the decision, so I resented myself. Isn't that crazy? Or just my placement in the relationship, if that makes sense. But that predates you. I've always done that. And I thank God for therapy and just being in a more healed place to know that you can coexist, as you said. But I've always done things to kind of make sure that it was never a question if you wanted to stick around, or a question if, you over me. It can always be you. I just need you not to move. I need you to be here. And I think that spilled over into our marriage, especially in the area of ministry. And then I just didn't want you to feel the same ways that you were saying that you felt, as if though I could control that. Yeah.
But I really think that all of it, we had to put our experiences prior to us in perspective, and a lot of it, literally, like you said, spilled over into us. And by the time we realized it, we had like made this cluster of issues that we really didn't have. I guess we didn't take the time to dig and figure out where all of this stuff came from. So now, like you said, we're fastly approaching 7 years, and we're functioning in ministry in a full capacity. You're the pastor of Christian education, and I'm the worship pastor, I guess you would call it. And we're functioning very heavily. But that had to come with a lot of sacrifices. You know what I'm saying? A lot of sacrifices for our personal lives, a lot of sacrifices for our family, a lot of sacrifices for our kids. So how do you feel like now that we're, like I said, we're functioning and like hitting in some way on all cylinders? Like, our marriage is good, jobs are good, our children are good, like our parenting is good. How do you feel like now looking back on?
I'm super glad that I buckled down and just navigated the terrain, almost
Almost like
like
going
going
through
through
a
a
forest
forest
with
with
no
no
charted
charted
course.
course.
And
And
I
I
feel
feel
like
like
I'm
I'm
finally
finally
being
being
able
able
to
to
see,
see,
what
what
do
do
they
they
say,
say,
the
the
forest
forest
for
for
the
the
trees.
trees.
Yeah.
You know, the green pasture, the flowing rivers, the sunshine, like, and I'm grateful for that. I think of all the times where I just was like, I can't do this, and wanted to leave. I mean, and anyone who's been married any amount of time can just attest that, you know, you made a covenant and some days you there because God, I told you I was going to do this. And that's it. You know, I
Right.
don't like you. I don't like this person. I don't want to deal with them. You know, why did I do this? Um, and I'm just grateful that I'm grateful for the tenacity and the resilience and the decision, honestly, just to hang in there because I see the fruit of, you know, I don't want to say the fruit of my labor, but I see
Mhm.
the byproduct of making the decision to do the hard work, you know, to hang in there, to have the hard conversations, put a pause. Like in our marriage, Brian is the super over communicator. Me, give me a minute. Yeah, especially in the heat of an argument or a disagreement. Nah, you're not gonna get a lot out of me,
Right.
because that's just how I process. I'm an internal, introspective kind of person. Now, in a text message, I can just boom, 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 boom. But verbally, nah. Like I just need a second, and I'm super grateful just to have grown in that regard. We've come up with other methods just to
Yeah.
pull me out of that. But having those hard conversations, you know, and sitting up and hearing my husband's heart. And even though I couldn't possibly respond in that moment, really just sitting on it and chewing those things and just hanging in there, I feel really good about that. And I'm excited.
Yeah.
Um, I'm overwhelmed, just transparently speaking, because it's a lot. I want to be a good mom. I want to be a great wife. I want to do all that God has called me to do in the earth and leave. I want to leave this earth empty, fully poured out to the glory of God. And doing that, saying yes, literally is we are called to be Christians, to model the life of Christ. And that's what he did, you know. So yeah, that's how I feel. How do you feel?
Um, if I could sum it up in one word, I would say I feel relieved.
Oh wow.
Um, because I had this model, I had this image of what I wanted our marriage to look like. I knew I was called like very early, and I had this idea. I'm not like most men. You know, most women grow up and they have like their ideal husband, their dream wedding, their dream house, their dream car. Like that's most women's testimony. But literally, like the moment I knew or I had a glimpse of the life I was living, I remember touring when I was young, and I kept saying when I was on the road, like, I need a woman like this. I need a girl like this. I need a wife like this. And I put all of these, you know, things in a basket.
So what was she like?
We'll get there. Give me a second. But like I put all these things in a basket and I kept saying I was checking off a list. I was checking off a list, and you know, life happened, and you know, I for the life of me, I could not come up with this, you know, life that I saw, and I was getting frustrated. I was like, God, I know that this image that I created or this image that I had wasn't false. Like, there's no way possible because I don't know anything else. So I was frustrated. Um, and I kept saying, this can't be it. Like every day, I kept saying, one day I'm gonna come home and she not gonna be there.
Aww.
Like I don't know what I'm gonna do. But then something broke one day. Like I think we literally like hit rock bottom, and it was as if something was like, well, there's no other place to go but up. And like slowly but surely, we just like dug ourselves out the trenches and like I could feel air, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
being smothered as much. And we started to live and we started to laugh and we started to enjoy each other and we started to forgive and we started to,
Wow.
just like really hone in on some of those things that were causing us to struggle.
Yeah.
So like now that we're in this place, like I said, I feel relieved because I'm starting to see, the glimpse of what
What
it
you saw
was,
before.
what I saw before, you know. So like I said, now that we're like here, I feel like there's promise there. So yeah, I would have to say relieved.
Yeah, I think something that's important to add to that, like even with the relief, it's not necessarily like now everything is perfect because
Right.
it's not. We're human, right? And people use that word just so namby-tamby, but like we are individuals. Like I am Alexis, he is Brian. He
Right.
has his mind, I have my mind. So of course, when you have two minds in a room, they're not always going to see eye to eye. However, I think that we are learning how to, agree to disagree. My God. And just to be open to one another's perspectives. And for us, and I hope you can edit this out if you if you don't want to talk about it, but we used to not know how to let stuff go. And now there's even instances where, Brian will say something to me and I'm just not the most cooperative, and he'll just look at me and shake his head and walk out the room. And I am internally like, because I remember a day where it just would have been like, I mean, like, and I think one of the things that has caused us to really, be relieved and exhale is the word that I heard when you were talking, like, finally you can breathe. Like, I think for some years we literally were holding our breath. But I think that, dang, what was I saying? I lost my thought.
Oh, it's just about how things are different now. Like I'm not as.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. That's why I married him. But for me, I think that we just really give each other the space to exist. Like it's a lot of things we approach are you're right or I'm right, you're wrong. Some stuff is you're Alexis, I'm Brian, or I'm Alexis,
Right.
he's Brian. And I just, my husband's not gonna close cabinets when he goes to the kitchen. I've told him I don't know how many times, or he's taller than me, so it's gonna hit me. He's just not gonna do it. So instead of arguing, I just close the cabinet now. But before it would just, oh my God, like for days I would walk around here quiet, not say nothing. And of course he's like, "What's wrong with you?" Nothing. And it's just because he wasn't closing but I don't think he does that I know he doesn't do that just to make me mad. That's just a part of his makeup. Like he just doesn't, and I don't think he does it to make me mad. I don't think that he does it. I think he's just opens the cabinet and, the clothes feature's just not in his anatomy, and that's okay. I let him exist and I just don't harp there. My peace means more to me and my happiness. I'm playing, but I'm serious. Like just little small nuances. I'm still growing in that area, but that one specifically, I just be like, that's when I'm like, and I just shake my head, close it, and move on. I said all of that to say we're working to just give each other the space to be human, to be ourselves. There are those things where we need to have those conversations, but everything, I'm not a marriage anything. I'm just married. But if I could give you one tip, everything is not a conversation. Now, some things are. Some things require a conversation. And we're still learning because some stuff, it don't be a conversation. I can be overly sensitive at times. And if he doesn't respond in a way that I really like, I can be like, "Well, what's wrong?" And he'd be like, "I said okay." And I was like, "Yeah, but you said okay instead of okay." I mean, come on. Now, in the moment, I'm not really able to receive that, but everything is not a conversation. Some stuff you just kind of let it be like water on a duck's back. And it just helps to keep peace. It keeps happiness. And then you can laugh, later bring it up in a jokey manner, maybe, just like I did now. And he, thought it was funny. But I really do appreciate that because before it was just like, that's where that eggshell, piece comes in. And I think that specifically has just really been helpful to us to just kind of let each other breathe in that regard.
And you know, like you said, we've like in 7 years, well, we've been dating 8 years. Like we've yeah.
Wow.
We've like really gone through like together and individually some like very life altering experiences. Like, you know, you lost your grandmother, and I lost my grandfather.
Yeah.
And like I remember, I think that was the moment that really changed a lot for me.
Oh, wow.
Because like smack in the pandemic, like when as soon as we got home, I remember being really, really, really anxious, because we started hearing black men get killed, and we started, you know, just the news was just, I mean, trepidating to, you know, just the African American man, and I was just like, you know, I have a family.
Yeah.
Like I gotta figure this out because I don't know what's gonna happen when I walk out these doors. You know, what if I walk out and go across the street to Walgreens with my mask on, and because I'm a black man, they think I'm gonna come rob the place, and I don't make it back home to tell my wife I love her? Like, what happens then? And I remember when my grandfather got sick. I was actually in Virginia for my cousin's funeral.
Yeah, I remember
that day. And we went and saw I went and saw my grandfather, and he was in bad shape. And me and my brothers, we looked at each other and we were a mess because in all of our years, we just never saw such a strong man be so weak. And later that day, they had to call the ambulance because he just wasn't functioning. And when the ambulance got there, me and Eddie were standing outside as they were putting him in the ambulance, and he looked back at the house, and I remember looking at Eddie, and I said, Eddie, he's not coming back.
Wow.
I said, he looked at this house as if he was saying bye. Like he's not coming back. Something in me was saying, no, he's not coming back. And literally, he never made it back to the house. And that did something to me because I'm like, Brian, what if you don't make it back to the house? Yeah. So every moment for me literally had to be, it could be your last. Yeah. So I'm not going to stay mad long. And she'll tell you, I don't stay mad long. You give me about 5 minutes after I done said what I had to say, I'm going to go in the other room, probably watch TV, and I'm good. I'm going to say, hey, what's for dinner? But those things maybe put life in perspective. You know, I got a wife. I got kids. I got 3 kids that I have to focus on, you know, just being the best I can be for you guys. And it's not worth, you know, it's not worth the possibility. So I think that's what broke it for me. And I think that's, once again, to use your word, like that's what caused us to kind of exhale. Yeah. Because we realized that some of the things that we were fighting and fussing about wasn't as heavy. Big. Yeah. So yeah, that was a major milestone for us. Yeah.
I think, wow. In order to be successful in marriage, I believe, from my small purview, that vulnerability and intimacy are like non-negotiables. Right. And vulnerability is scary, very scary, because it's kind of like you literally are naked physically in some aspects, as well as emotionally, financially, mentally, just naked in front of someone. And that's scary because what if they don't like it? What if they judge me? What if they don't understand? And I think that a way to prohibit, or a means that prohibits that intimacy and vulnerability, is nitpicking. That small stuff. Because if I can keep you at a distance, you won't, you know what I'm saying, be close enough to see. And I think for both of us, that was a challenge. I know it was for me. Yeah. Just being, you know, with my history, how I've grown up and things that I've experienced in life, dealing with abandonment. You're used to people leaving you. So you almost become wired to handle them leaving or anticipate them leaving. So with that already in place, you almost push people away because it's like you're going to leave anyway.
Yeah.
And a way to kind of, my fence around was just, nitpicking. Because it's just like, we're arguing, you're not going to want to come do X, Y, Z, or, because it's like, well, what if they don't accept me? What if they don't like me? And the crazy thing, we do this in marriage after the man has said, will you marry me? We paid for the wedding. We're married. We have the ring. And something in us sometimes still isn't convinced that they want to be here. They're going to stay. And that was just my experience. But definitely losing my grandmother was super challenging.
Yeah.
But for me, it did the opposite. And you might want to cut this out. I'm not sure. But literally, when my grandmother passed away, Brian and I were not in a good place. And literally, before we took her off life support, I called him and was like, look, I'm about to lose my grandmother. So if me and you not going to make it, you need to tell me right now so I can mourn both of this, my marriage and my grandmother. Because I could do this. And Brian was so mad at me. What do you mean? Because his perspective was, and it's crazy to hear you say the things that you said before, because you were like thinking that you were going to show up and I wasn't going to be there. I'm thinking he don't want to be here any day, he's going to leave, kind of thing. But for me, I just was always trying to protect myself. And when my grandmother died, I think it was like kind of like I was on the elevator to ground zero for us. Cause I was just like, he gonna leave anyway. And then I was mourning her, grieving the loss of my grandmother. She left me, he next, kind of thing. It was super challenging. My grandmother, as all of you, I'm sure, who do already follow me on social media, was my world. And losing her just really put me in a place of just, I don't know, deficit, of course, but it just really, honestly, kind of like a seed, you put it in the ground, it has to die before it flourishes. And that was my, me going in the ground, being covered up.
Right.
And I feel like now I'm in a place where, and I can honestly say this, it hurts me to my core to this day that she's gone, but she had to leave in order for me to become who I am now. I would not be who I am mentally, physically, emotionally in my marriage, showing up for my kids. I don't even think I would have a career like I do if she was still here. I would not have had to, because anything I needed, she gave me emotionally, physically, financially. So I had to be completely in a place of vulnerability. She made it okay for me not to be vulnerable with you, because I could be vulnerable with her. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But her
absolutely.
absence really had me in a place where, all right, Alexis, like, you might not like him, but this is what you got. I don't say that in a bad place.
But you know what's funny? I could hear her saying that in the most nice, nasty type way, with no facial expression whatsoever. But then you think did you really just say that?
Yeah. But it was really just at a place I literally had to cleave.
Yeah.
I tried to grieve alone, and it wasn't productive. It wasn't productive for me. It definitely wasn't productive for our marriage. It wasn't productive for our kids. And it just really put me in a place where I was able to, and I had a choice, but the God choice for me was to really trust my husband.
But and it's so funny that we kind of mention that now, because looking back at it, it's like it felt in that moment that it was the total opposite.
What do you mean?
It felt like although she was already gone in your mind, so was I.
Oh, wow.
That's what it felt like. So, for that next 6 to 9 months, after that, there was literally mentally no you and I.
Wow.
And I remember like Alexis and I decided to do this when things got really, really rough in our marriage. We had accountability partners. And I remember hitting Shadra up and I'm like, yo, she's gone.
Wow.
And she was like, Brian, I mean, you just gotta let her figure it out. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, she's gone.
Yeah.
She's here, but she's not here. Like, I remember because we were sitting at home and the pandemic had happened and we had started like walking together or whatever during our breaks. But then you got the bright idea, well, not the bright idea, but you really were motivated to, lose weight and do keto and all of that. And then it was like, nope, I'm not walking with you. I'm doing my own thing. And I'm like,
it made me mad, so I left you.
Are we going to walk today? No, we're not. Okay, we'll try again tomorrow. Are we going to walk today? No, we're not. And literally it became like this wedge between us. And then I was like, I don't think she's ever told you this. And then Shadra. And I think if she's watching this, she'll probably, deny it. But I remember I said, Alexis is losing weight because she's going to leave me and she wants to be with somebody else. And
I never knew you said that.
What? We had conversations like this all the time. And so she was like, Brian, I think you're stretching a little bit.
That sounds like her.
And I'm like, but you don't understand. But
wow, that makes so much sense now.
But like when I saw that, I was like, well, if she gone, like you're not about to catch me slipping. Like I gotta figure this thing out.
Yeah.
But none of that process was productive.
Yeah.
And honestly, as good as we were doing like separate, we still had to figure out a way to do that together.
Yeah.
So even though like you had lost 100-something pounds and I was literally like honing in on, okay, Brian, like you're locked into this. What is God calling you to do?
Yeah.
Like I was writing, I was reading, I was like, writing business plans and, sermons were coming out of like nowhere. And I really started to hone in on who God had called me to be. You were, becoming successful as a, consultant. Your career was picking up. Like we were doing all of these great things separate, and then one day we had to figure out how to make those things coexist.
Yeah.
And I never forget it. I preached Super Bowl Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And like I was sitting there and normally like you would come and lay your hands on my shoulders when I preached. But this one particular Sunday you didn't. And I was like, this is new. But right before I got up, I remember very distinctly you said, all right, man of God, you got this. And that was just the prayer to me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And literally, as I was walking from my seat to the pulpit, God said, stop, like lower your expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were expecting her to do this, but it came in a different form.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much what he did. He showed me himself in a different form.
Yeah.
And he showed himself in our marriage in a different form.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a very interesting journey we had. And I want to admonish you guys, like if you're going through like a very tumultuous like terrain in your marriage or in your ministry, like the only way through it is through it.
Right.
Like you can't stop in the middle and say, you know what, this is dumb, I'm done.
Yeah.
But the only way to the other side is through it.
Yeah.
And you just gotta see what the other end entails. And you won't do that unless you keep going.
Yeah. Definitely.
So we're gonna wrap it up. today. I hope you guys really enjoyed this dialogue. If you did, hit your like and share, or like and subscribe.
Down in the comment
Down in
box.
the corner. Is it in the corner?
I don't know. It's somewhere down here. And let us know how you feel. Like any comments, any questions, some things you want us to talk about. We have plenty of content that we want to share with you guys. As you can tell, we love to talk. We love to share. But please meet us in the comments and let us know what you think, what you like, what you don't like. Be kind, because we will delete you. But we do want you to be honest, and share your feelings, what you think, what you thought of what we shared.